MotoGP podcast. Things are heating up towards the final race of the season, which is coming up in Barcelona next weekend. But this past weekend, Dirk, that was one for the ages. What a race that was!
Oh, absolutely, Invia. I mean, I've been watching this sport since the two-stroke era, the top class specifically, and I've been to a couple of races myself, but I've never seen as competitive a couple of rounds as that. Two title contenders just going at it. They were going toe to toe like two boxers right from the word get go in the main race. So it was an extremely exciting weekend.
And then that qualifying wasn't something to
Oh,
that
yes,
you can write off. That was amazing. You said to me yourself that Martin looked quite shaken after
he
Bagnaia
did.
scored to set up that incredible lap time.
He did absolutely. I mean, that was really to better Martin's time with another 2/10 was just. I really couldn't believe it. I mean, Banai went into the weekend with a deficit of 17 points, so he knew he had to do something. He had to win. Basically, that's what it boils down to, and he tried his best. I mean, he was a different animal. He was really aggressive, and he came and he dominated all the practice sessions. Went right into Q2, and then Martin, not out of nowhere, but I mean, he wasn't that fast in the practice sessions. And he put up a brilliant lap time. Afterwards, everybody thought that was it. He had pole position, and then Bagnaia came and he bettered that by 2/10. But that was as perfect a lap around a racetrack that you will ever see. Going into the corners, exactly the perfect line, braking exactly the right spot, that sort of thing. So that was absolutely brilliant. And he got pole because of that, of course.
Formula One referred to the lap of the gods. That must have been one of them.
It was, yes, some Italian god, I believe.
Yeah. That was interesting to me. I noticed that the Pramac Ducati and the Lenovo Ducati are basically the same bikes. They are exactly the
Yeah.
same. The only thing that's different is the color scheme. And number one, Bagnaia started in pole, but again, Martin got a better what's the whole shot? So he got away
Yes.
better. But
Yeah.
even when they go
Yeah.
down the straights, those two next to each other, Martin
Yeah.
always seems to be edging a little bit ahead. And I watched him after the race. Bagnaia is quite a bit taller than Martin is. Do you think that maybe he's got more
Uh,
resistance? What makes him
yeah.
slightly
But
slower in that, or was it just
yeah,
setup?
Martin is very small. He's really a tiny guy. And Bagnaia is one of the tallest chaps on the grid, although he's only 167 centimeters tall, which isn't a lot. But he is one of the tallest. I think only Espargaro is taller than him. So that could have an effect. I think, however, it's the way that they ride, and it's how much power you go into that straight with, where you are when you launch for that straight. And the thing with Bagnaia is he's a very good breaker. So Martin will be there, he'll come, but eventually he'll opt out, and then Bagnaia will still go another 2 or 3 meters before he starts braking. Everybody acknowledges that, Martin himself as well. So that makes a difference at the end of those straights. But I mean, talking about the sprint, yes, Martin got the whole shot. He always launches well these days. We've seen that. There's one interesting thing about that track in Malaysia, about Sepang as well, is the layout of the grid. I mean, if you get pole position, theoretically you start in front, okay? So it's like, here's number one, number two, number three, okay? But you've got a right-hand corner as your first corner. In other words, if you do have the pole, you don't have as much an advantage as, say, number two or number three, because you have to cross over to get through that apex of the first corner, which is a
Mm.
right-hander. And we saw that, especially in the sprint. Martin launched very good. He launched straight, and Bagnaia had to come across and to try to cut him off. And in that first turner, Martin was there, and he took the whole shot. Then we had that major crash in turn two, sort of in the middle of the pack, with the two Red Bull KTM guys going off, and Fabio Quartararo on the Yamaha. It was a major pile-up, a very bad one. Fortunately, they're all okay. So red flag, and we restart, and exactly the same thing. However, I mean, Bagnaia was there afterwards. He stuck to Martin, It was him, Martin, and Marc Marquez all the way, and then he lost it. He just went too far too quickly into a very tricky corner. It's almost a U-turn just before the back straight, and Bagnaia lost it there. Now, if you look at the footage there, I do believe it's not an accident. I think he made a big mistake there. It was one of the fatal mistakes of the season because he got 0 points then, of course. But I mean, he didn't go like all the other riders. Martin was in front of him, and if you look at Martin's racing line, he did the conventional one. He went slightly out wide, hit the apex, and then through. Bagnaia was on the inside, and he followed the curve of that very, very sharp turn. And in other words, he didn't come in for it and kept his momentum. He was there and he had to tilt it in to make the corner and open up. And as soon as he tilted it in, the front washed away. It is a tricky corner. I think there's something with the surface and the camber there as well. We've seen many accidents there over time, but that was it. I mean, that just pulled the carpet right from under his feet and from the whole team. And you could see in their reaction they suspected that they might have lost the championship right there.
Yeah, it was definitely not his best corner, I can tell you that. But I wanted to talk to you about that crash quickly. That was quite scary. I never realized when Jack Miller's head went between the seat and the wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so much torque and momentum in that. Yes, it could have been a very serious accident. But I saw he's walking down the pit lane afterwards. Everything.
Yeah,
still.
apparently it started with a contact with someone made contact with Brad Binder, and there was a lot of KTM pieces of fairing and aero flying all over, and he went wide and then he fell, and that set off a chain reaction. I mean, it was Jack, and Jack went into Quartararo, and he went sort of between his head between the swing arm and the seat. Fortunately, it's not a really big gap, especially at that specific section, everything being compressed, the suspension and so on in the corner. So he was okay, but it was a scary one. I mean, they're still doing major speeds around those corners, and you have the additional danger of someone running over you. Someone did, in fact, I think it was Mir or someone who rode over Jack's legs afterwards, after he fell. So you have that as well if everybody's tightly packed like that. So it's a very scary situation. We're always glad if everyone's okay.
I was watching that corner. It's a sharp, it's almost a 180-degree turn one, and then into almost another 180-degree turn two.
Yeah,
and that's immediately after the start.
It's like a chicane.
Yeah,
it's like a chicane. It's a quick. Number one's a quick corner, and then you have to flip it to the onto the left again.
And they all bunch up together.
They're all bunched up.
Yeah, it's funny. Anyway,
it's like a funnel down there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So after the sprint race, then the lead went up to 29 points because obviously Pecco didn't score any points, and Martin went on to win it. So everything was there was everything to play for in the main race. What happened there?
Yeah, and the champ rose to the occasion. I mean, this time you could see him just deciding, willfully making the decision that Martin's not going to beat him to the whole shot again. So as soon as they pulled away, he just came right across, prepared himself for that corner, but he took the best line, and that was it. And then, I mean, as we said, then we had some of the tightest, toughest, most amazing racing that we've ever seen. It was like in something like 11 or a dozen overtakes, swapping the lead over the first 3 rounds of that race, and that is just unheard of. And it's not as if they were changing the lead. I mean, they were going head to head. They were going down the straight. There was nothing between them. And then it's the next corner, and then the next corner, and this one take it. It's a miracle that they didn't touch, but apparently they didn't. Pecco said that there was no contact ever. Not even in that first corner, which it looked like. So it was amazing racing until Martin just said, okay, that's it. Let's back off a little bit. I might gain on him later on. Because the Pramac Ducati team decided he should go out on a medium front, not a soft front like Pecco. So he backed off, and eventually he did gain on him again, but Bagnaia was too quick. I mean, by that time his lead was just too big, and he won a fantastic race under all that pressure, just showing what he's really capable of and being really aggressive. It's you should realize that before that race starts, you're at the cusp. If I fall again, everything's lost. But I really have to win. So how hard am I going to go for this? And he obviously decided it doesn't matter. If I don't go all out, and he said so before the race as well, if I don't go all out, then there's absolutely no chance. So I really have to do this. And he did that. So it was a brilliant race. It gave him his 10th victory for the season. There've only been 5 other top class riders. The first being Giacomo Agostini, the great legend, Rossi, Mick Doohan, I think Nicky Hayden, and obviously Marc Marquez. They've all had 10 wins in one season. So it puts him in an elite class, yes. But unfortunately, as we know, he's still 24 points behind at this stage.
Yeah, we saw this weekend of the Formula One race in Interlagos in Brazil, what an effect the red flag has on the race. And, after that crash in the first corner, we just talked about in the main race, there was a red flag called. I was wondering if Pecco can repeat his excellent getaway, but that worked out well for him.
It did, yeah, it did, yes. And because it was on the first lap, I mean, they started it as a fresh race, so it didn't influence anything. They started same positions. You don't move up into the empty spaces either, that sort of thing. You start in your original position, and he did. He did a second launch the same aggression, etc. And he took the lead and eventually won. And he won by quite a margin, I think, with Enea Bastianini another couple of seconds behind Martin
On the same bike.
on the same bike, but obviously again we have to mention after Marc Marquez falling out. He was running hard in third. He fell and rejoined, but I think he finished 12th. But once again, it just by the by, it just goes to show how hard he needs to push that GP23 just to stay with them,
Well, that shows you how hard he can push that GP23.
Absolutely,
I mean, his
absolutely.
brothers on the same bike, he can't do
Yeah,
much. The guys on the
yeah.
VR46s can't do much,
Yeah, yeah.
Pesecci and
Well, Alex had a good weekend. Alex had a good weekend,
yeah,
He,
but
he
not
finished
the
better
same
than
season that Marquez had on the same bike. His brother
obviously
had,
not.
Mark had, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, obviously not. No, no. He's
Well, I'm
not in the
saying it
same
here. I've said
class.
it before. Next year, Mark Marquez is going to be world champion. I've got no doubt about it. So,
Yeah.
staking my claim early. All right. So now next weekend it's the final race. That's now the weekend of the
Yeah.
17th in
Yes.
Barcelona. Why is it in Barcelona?
Yes.
Wasn't it supposed to
Well,
be in Valencia?
it was. That's like it's tradition now that the final race is there. Unfortunately, they had serious floods there because of heavy rain. I mean, tens of people died in the floods. It's a tightly packed city in some areas, so there was an absolute lots of damage. So we all suspected that it might get either postponed or moved, and the organizers decided to move it, keep it the same weekend. They just had to sort out with Barcelona that it's okay. They know they've got different governments over there, local and regional and national, and they got the okay. So it's going to be at Barcelona. We had a race earlier this year in May already, because it is on the calendar. So it's going to be an interesting one.
But remind me what happened in that race. Wasn't that one of the ones that Martin crashed out from the lead?
Well, that was where Bagnaia crashed out in the sprint from the lead. He was leading by more than a second when he crashed out. So it's quite interesting. This track could influence, possibly influence the outcome or the margins of a victory over there, because Bagnaia, he last year he won the GP there, or this year, sorry, pardon, he won the GP, but he crashed out in the sprint race, and he says he doesn't like the track. There are especially 2 corners that are really difficult and really dangerous. So he's not looking forward to. He would have preferred Valencia, for example. So he's not really looking forward, although he won in May. But the problem with Barcelona is they recovered the track in 2018, but it's very slippery. It's still very slippery. They don't have a lot of grip. So that they have to adapt to that. They have to adjust the way that they ride. There's going to be more sliding, etc. Now, what you have then is you have more tire wear as well. If it's a slippery track, you have more spinning, you have more sliding through corners, that sort of thing. So there will be more tire wear. So that could influence it as well. And if you're rider up against the rider in front of you, as you know, your tire temperature increases. That gives off higher degradation, etc. as well. So Bagnaia is not really looking forward to running there. He said that at the previous race that he tried, because he knows in essence, he won't be able to do this on his own. I mean, he's 24 points behind right now. So if at Martin could win the championship in the sprint race if he wins and Bagnaia finishes third or lower. So Bagnaia must at least win or finish second in the sprint race. And even then, he's only got an academic chance of winning the championship by then going through to the main race, which I do believe is going to come down to that. So he's got everything to play for, And Martin, he only needs to do the bare minimum. He only needs 14 points in addition to the lead that he's got, If he adds another 14 points over 2 races, a Saturday and a Sunday, it's not all that difficult for someone like him and for someone who's a sprint specialist like him on a Saturday. So all the pressure, absolutely all the pressure. It's like an Everest that's lying and waiting in front of Bagnaia. Now, he said that he tried in Malaysia to give some of the other guys a bit of a toe. In other words, that'll be Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini, because there are no team orders. And when asked, Bastianini said he won't give way. He won't give way to Bagnaia. He'll go. Remember, he's out of the team. I mean, he's leaving them for KTM at the end of the year. So he's not going to yield. But Bagnaia hopes that he can put 1 or 2 of those guys between himself and Martin, because that'll rob Martin of points. And he tried to do that by giving them a little bit of a toe, riding a slightly different line so that they could fall in behind him, but it didn't work. Now he's hoping it might happen in Barcelona, that he might get help from one of those guys, or 2 of them. The problem being with that is Marc Marquez. This is one of the 2 only tracks in the whole universe that Marc Marquez doesn't like, is Barcelona. It's not his favorite track. He doesn't perform all that well there, especially after his big fall in 2020. He's there. So he's a bit apprehensive about the whole thing, about that track. Enea Bastianini's got a horrible, horrible track record there. The 3 previous Grand Prix, this one included. This year he did in May, he finished 18th. Before that, he did not start. Before that, he did not finish because of a crash. So he's got no bloody record there, So I don't think you can really depend on him, even though he's the tire whisperer, and he will be able to conserve his tires on that track. History shows that you won't be able to depend on him, which all in all just puts more and more pressure on the current champion.
A short-lived current champion, not much longer. It's going to be the champion. I mean, it's quite obvious.
It's an absolute outside chance, but while it's still there on paper, the chance is still there.
Well,
if Martin makes a horrible mistake or crashes out,
what if he crashes in both races? What happens then?
Yeah, then he's out.
And Bagnaia wins it. Then you can make it.
Yeah. So
even
if he crashes out we don't want it to happen. But even if he crashes out theoretically in the sprint and Pecco wins the sprint, that's another 12 points. That puts the difference down to 12, suddenly. So now you're going to the final round where there's a difference of 12. So if he wins and Martin comes 4th, then he wins it. That sort of. So
it's not impossible, but improbable.
It's improbable. I think the main thing that we have to remember over here is that we saw the last 2 meetings now, the last 2 weekends. Pecco is going to go for this all out. And I think that's the bottom line. I think looking back at last Sunday, there's just, no matter what happens, in the sprint or in the main race in Barcelona, he's just going to go all out, flat out, and try to win it, both races, and that's it, which is going to give us brilliant racing. With a couple of guys in between him and Martin, KTM's possibly, they haven't had a bad run at Barcelona, so it's gonna be a great grand finale.
And a proper time this time. We don't have to wake up in early hours of the morning to watch races. They're back in normal, almost normal time, European time. There we go. That's in alignment. It's in alignment with us. All right, Dirk, thanks. We'll have a chat next week. Do a proper preview. That is, we're going to be looking forward to. There's some more news that probably going to start breaking by then. So look forward to chatting to you then. Thanks, man.
Cheers. Have a good one.